Let me begin with the title of the show. 38.05 degrees north, 84.5 degrees west longitude. The title of the show refers to the geographic coordinates of this gallery, and in keeping with the spirit of the show, it asks us to consider, the fact that really any place on Earth can be a sacred place if we view it in that way. So that was the general kind of thrust of the show, and then we created a certain ambiance, and this was with Carl and others, but with prayer flags, which are commonly used to denote sacred space, crossing thresholds, commemorations of a spiritual nature. So we wanted to incorporate some of that in here as well, to, I guess, move us a little bit into a kind of a space that we can kind of think about things like sacred geography. What I would like to do actually is zero in on a couple of images and tell you a little bit about those images, just so you can get a sense of what might be behind some of the pictures. So this was the first image. This is actually kind of an ironic image as the first image because architecturally it doesn't fit in the Himalaya. This is a peace pagoda, Shanti Stupa above the Indus Valley. It was one of many peace pagodas that have been built around the world by Japanese monks. The architecture is from a Japanese tea garden. So, it doesn't fit architecturally, but it fits in a lot of ways. This is on the other side of the range. That's on the western Himalaya. This is in the eastern Himalaya. This was early on in the project, but they're mani stones. They're very common throughout the Himalaya. They're commemorating, in some cases, a person's life or an event or a teaching. Over time, as I was photographing these as individual places, and I was seeing them as individual places, I started to see them in a larger way. I started to see them in a larger way, and I started reading about them in a larger way, and I started to see pilgrims walking from place to place and actually becoming part of the connective tissue linking these places, and then gradually came to terms with the notion that most of these places are interconnected into a great big kind of mythic cartography, a cartography of the human consciousness, a sacred geography, so that they all become interwoven into this kind of spiritual fabric that lays over the Tibet plateau and the Himalaya. So many of these images are places. Some of them are people. Here's a pilgrim, a Tibetan Buddhist pilgrim. This is a Hindu pilgrim, a sadhu from India, who is traveling up to this mountain here, which is Shivpuri, which is a sacred mountain for Hindus. It overlooks the source of the Ganges River. This is the source of the Ganges here. And I'll kind of stop my formal talk by just talking a little bit about this image. This mountain overlooks a glacier called the Gangotri Glacier, and the snout of the Gangotri Glacier is a stream that just gushes out in a big ice cave, and that is the physical source of the Ganges. About 3 days downstream by walk is the temple of the source of the Ganges, the Gangotri Temple. So I'm at the temple, and I'm thinking I'm at the source of the Ganges, and it's 3 days walk further up the valley. So, okay, and I hooked up with just serendipitously, the high priest of the Gangotri Temple is a photography buff. So we just started talking, and I explained what I was doing, and he was real interested. He said, well, let me walk up to the source with you for 3 days. So the whole thing, we're walking up, and he's explaining this landscape from his point of view, and I'm kind of explaining it from a geographical point of view, and he's talking about the breath of Shiva, and I'm talking about adiabatic lapse rates. But the interesting thing is that the Gangotri Glacier is the fastest receding glacier in the Himalaya. That when the Gangotri Temple was built, it was built at the terminus, the terminal moraine of the glacier, and the glacier has since melted back to the point that it's at right now. So I raised the question, this is the most holy river for Hinduism. What if it disappears because the glacier disappears? And he looks at me and goes, this is the age of Kali, it's the age of destruction and regeneration, so what do you expect? And it wasn't a big deal. But it was an interesting kind of revelation. walking up there. So let me stop here, folks, and I'll be glad to, if you have any questions in this kind of situation, or thank you, I'll be mingling around. You can ask me individually if you don't want to bring it up now, but certainly we've got time for any questions if you want to